Good evening, everyone. Being that it's 7 p.m., we're going to call the meeting to order. Michelle, can you please read the sunshine law?
This is a regular meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport, Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Let the minutes show that adequate notice of this meeting as required by Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, has been provided by the annual notice, which has been posted on the bulletin boards, filed with the Borough Clerk, and has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Independent, the Star Ledger, and the Two River Times.
Thank you. Can we please have roll call?
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Council President McNamara.
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco. Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Aranio.
Here.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. If everyone could please join me in saluting the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone could please remain standing for a moment of silence of your choosing. Thank you. A couple of presentations that we're going to make quickly. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the efforts and initiatives and dedication and hard work that Councilwoman McDermott put into serving the Borough of Keyport for the last 4 years. Your charm, your personality, and as I said, your commitment did not go without notice. The character that you brought to this borough was simply outstanding. Thank you for understanding your role from the beginning as what a council member's purpose is. The amount of ordinances you helped update from the 1940s on all the different and various committees that you served on, with the most recent one being the environmental and making sure that that's up to current compliance. Those efforts may not always be what is the shiny stuff out on the street that people see, but the work that you put in was simply amazing. So thank you for your service for the last 4 years, and on behalf of the Borough of Keyport, I'd like to issue you a certificate of appreciation. Councilmember Pacheco is not in attendance this evening, so her certificate of appreciation we emailed to her home, but it should be on record that she did serve the borough as well for 6 years on the governing body and various committees, so thank you to her for her service to the Borough of Keyport as well. Next, I would like to take a moment. I would like to take a moment. As you all know, I've been serving at the local level in various capacities for the last decade. From the community emergency response team to environmental, to council, to mayor. I have never seen a more dedicated council president than Councilmember McNamara. Your bipartisanism, your professionalism, and your thoroughness is beyond exemplary. And I'd like to issue your certificate as well. That was easy. Staples button.
Well, this won't be. So now it's my turn. I've never read one of these before, but I know you're a real proclamation fan.
Oh, no.
So tonight we have a proclamation of the Borough Council. Whereas Mayor Colette J. Kennedy has served the Borough of Keyport in many roles over the years, her most recent being not only her role as an active member of the Community Emergency Response Team, but also as the first woman to serve as Keyport mayor. She was sworn in on January 1st, 2019, after serving on the Borough Council. And whereas Mayor Kennedy has provided leadership and professionalism not only while presiding over the Borough Council meetings, but in the care she displayed with the challenging issues that were presented due to COVID-19 pandemic. She kept the residents, employees, and businesses informed of all state and county updates, while personally arranging vaccine appointments for many of our seniors and getting important financial assistance information to our business community. And whereas Mayor Kennedy has served as a member of the KBBC, Keyport Library Board of Trustees, and Keyport Unified Planning Board, just to name a few of the roles fulfilled while serving as mayor of Keyport. And whereas in addition to all the roles held during her term, Mayor Kennedy has officiated many weddings with donations from such being gifted to various nonprofit organizations. She raised the bars of inclusion and diversity in the municipality with efforts to acknowledge both Juneteenth and Pride Month, helping to make Keyport a community its residents are proud to call home. Whereas Mayor Kennedy worked tirelessly on the Mayor's Wellness Campaign, a statewide community health initiative resulting in Keyport receiving the Healthy Town Up and Coming designation. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Council of the Borough of Keyport express their gratitude to Mayor Kennedy for her steadfast leadership and exemplary, collaborative, and working partnership over these years, and offer nothing but well wishes and thankfulness for her great mentorship and character as a person. In witness whereof we set our hands this day, this 20th day of December 2022, and it's the whole council.
My trick getting over there. Thank you, everyone. Very unexpected, very appreciative. Thank you. All right, good evening again. Next we'll go on to committee reports. Councilmember McDermott.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding Environmental Commission, there has been a request submitted regarding DEP permits, regarding what maintenance we can do along the waterfront, along the beachfront, including removal of, non-local bushes and things like that. So that's being followed through. That was submitted to the borough and the borough engineer, and there will be follow-ups. And I did ask the Environmental Commission to put it on the January 2023 agenda, so there's follow-up by the respective liaison on that. And I do want to note that there is going to be collections of up to 25 trees as part of the sustainable Christmas tree replacement along the dunes. So the DBW will go around and drop those off after the holidays. So again, as residents, if you have any trees that you would put on the front of your garbage, and the DPW will pick it up and place it there, so we can kind of use that to protect our shorelines. So that will continue, and they will actually do that January 21st of 2023. That will be that event where they go ahead and plant those along the dune, along Cedar Street and Benjamin Terry Veterans Park. Regarding KBBC, The budget is expected to be submitted in January. There were discussions at the KBBC meeting about submitting it for this meeting, but didn't make this agenda. And there's also discussions on what events will be finalized, so expect that in January, or if not, the February meeting, by the time it comes into agenda. And also, regarding the audit, that is also going to include 2021 up to January 2022, so that should be given to the council beginning next year. So that's next thing, works with that. And again, if there are any events and stuff that are being put to KBBC, please support it, volunteer, take ownership of it, participate as a resident. And as business owners, we've actually had over $8,000 worth of Keyport cash turned in by participating restaurants. So that's a huge increase in comparison to what's been the last few years. So I want to thank all the businesses who participate in the KBBC Keyport Cash program, as well as any of the residents who actually turned those in and visited the businesses and participated in that program. And I do want to say, I think we've had a very good progressive year with both environmental and KBBC, and I hope to see those events continue next year with diversity, equity, inclusion principles behind it. And also ensuring that we work in partnership with the borough and all its designated parties to ensure that everyone's in agreement and process is followed. One of the things I can say on a personal level, I do want to thank, it's been an honor to serve 4 years. It's been absolutely amazing learning curve. It's been absolutely amazing to work with, to get to know each and every one of the borough members that I work with, Chief Torres, Jay, Trevor, and everyone here. I think over the years too, and everyone who has served in the past, it's been a pleasure. And also the volunteers who are committee members, commission, and board members, because I know the amount of work that we all do. And I want to thank each and every one of them for showing up to those meetings or those events and participating and volunteering. So I think that's an important thing to recognize. And I also want to just hope that whatever happens, that Forefront Keyport is kept in the best interest and not parties or individuals are taking ownership and focusing on what's the best for its residents, because that's what I stood for. As a person who didn't have anything besides my home here, I would always say I stood for Keyport. And I stood for everyone in Keyport, not just one party or one individual or individuals of the sectors. I think one of the beauties I love about this town, I fell in love with it, was because of its diversity, its beauty, it literally was a pearl that when I came here, I said, this is absolutely amazing. We have so much potential, and I do want to thank Mayor Kennedy for even listening to me when I kind of said I wanted to run for council when I said this in 2018. Some arbitrarily said it to a few people, and she listened. And I want to thank also everyone in the governing body for electing me, and also the public for electing me in 2019 to be electing me. So I hope I've served everyone well, and I look forward to seeing what else happens. And I do want to always wish best of luck to everyone who serves up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Davidson. Councilmember Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. For the construction department for the month of October. Did we do October?
We did it.
No, you weren't in October.
So
We did it, though.
Just so we didn't do November. Alright, next meeting I will give you an update on the numbers for construction task for November, because I don't have them with me, because I have October. So we're gonna skip right to one other thing, 162 2nd Street. If many of you have driven by there, you notice the building has come down. The debris is still there. It should have been cleaned up by December 9th, but it has not been done yet. So the construction office and all the officials upstairs will stay on top of that to make sure it gets cleaned up in a timely manner in the proper way. With that, they did show up in court, the owner, and we did collect $12,500 in fines from the property owner. In regards to planning board, our next meeting is January 26th, will be the annual reorganization meeting for planning board. And we have numerous applications lined up that were from this year that have been moved to next year, so first quarter should be pretty busy for the planning board. So if I am appointed there, I look forward to seeing all of our favorite residents at the planning board meetings. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President McNamara?
Thank you. Recreation, the Holiday Light Tour was Sunday. Winners will be announced at reorg. The committee voted to continue holding meetings in 2023 at 7 o'clock on the first Monday of each month, except September, when it will be on the Wednesday. And still looking to schedule the CPR class. That is still on the radar. Hopefully that'll be the end of January. The Senior Center had their holiday party on the 6th. They had somewhere between 80 and 90 attendees. Reminder to Keyport residents, the center is free for our residents. If you're a member or would like to join, please be sure to complete the annual registration form. That information is really important for us in terms of processing for various grants that the center receives. The monthly newsletter is available in person at the center or on the borough website. It has a thorough calendar with all the activities for each day. There's certainly something there for everyone. And in January, there will be a 3-part program offered by the Alzheimer's Association. It'll be held at the Senior Center on 3 consecutive Wednesdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., January 18th, 25th, and February 1st. This will be primarily targeted towards caregivers and covers identifying signs all the way through available resources that folks can tap into. And it will address Alzheimer's and dementia in general. Interested folks do need to pre-register, though, through the Senior Center. Green Team, the borough received congratulations on being awarded bronze level certification from Sustainable Jersey. And on cannabis, there's a resolution in the agenda packet appointing our current borough attorney as special cannabis counsel to represent the borough in ongoing cannabis-related legislation. They've been involved from the onset with work on the borough cannabis ordinance, the recent application process, and the resolutions of support, in addition to the litigation mentioned in the resolution. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Radio?
Thank you. First, I want to go over the NPP. Sorry, I have a little cold. Madawan Signs is going to push over the next 2 weeks, including weekends if needed, to get our signs installed. These are the stop signs. They've completed 4, and we have 17 in total to do at the MPP district. The plan moving forward is to install 2 to 3 footings a day, every day, so they can install poles, signage, as soon as the concrete is set. The setting takes about 24 to 48 hours, so we're hoping within the next 2 weeks that it'll be completed. I'd also like to go through the MPP Year 2 recap projects and successes that the MPP has had. Nicole Henn, she deserves credit for continuing to follow through on everything for the year, and including the whole MPP team. Gazebo LED color changing lights were done. The landscaping improvements at the waterfront. Pedestrian safety included the high visibility crosswalks. Initiation of the municipal parking improvements, initiation of the decorative street signs and stop signs, initiation of the LED lighting upgrades, and initiation of mini park improvements. Year 3 approved plan, the signage and wayfinding. We're going to decorative street stop signs for the remaining MPP zone for 2023, investigate decorative wayfinding in historic Keyport Town signage, discuss options to expand the street and stop signage. We also have the mini park waterfront placemaking activation program for phase 2. That's the mini park pavers, retaining wall repairs, possible partnership with KVBC. MPP can support up to 10% of the soft costs. Investigation of filtered water bottle filling stations, and investigate the boat ramp improvements for future MPP years. Year 3 funding has been approved for 2023. The grant period is January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. The present time, Year 3 is planned for a 12-month cycle, and it could go to 18 months. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Caproni?
Thank you, Mayor. So for the fire department, they had 21 calls for the month. For first aid, they had 16 calls for the month. For the treasurer's report, we collected $1,420 and nothing from Union Beach. That's it for me. Oh, and recycling, the, what are we calling it? Yeah, the recycling calendars are in the works. They should be coming out soon. And that's it.
Thank you. Regarding the committees that I report on, for items that haven't already been reported, the library board, Kathleen sat in for me for December so that we had a transition for someone as we shift tides. So I don't have any other reports on that one. And as far as the Mayor's Wellness Campaign Committee, we will be working with trying to compile a report to submit by the end of the year for the 22 reporting year. I've asked the different department heads for some of their statistics to work on compiling that, but the goal for next week is to get it in by the end of the week. Since our last meeting, I held a newly elected training along with Jay for our two new for our two new elected council members. And I also attended the KBBC meeting that Councilman McDermott already reported on. I attended the Boy Scout Troop 364 Court of Honor and Eagle Scout ceremony last night, along with council members McDermott, Davidson, and Pepperoni, where 3 Eagle Scouts were presented with a certificate of recognition on behalf of the Borough of Keyport. I think it's important that we take a moment to recognize that Troop 364 will be in a pause mode until further notice. The remaining members will be joining Troop 66 in Mattawan. But it's important to note that Troop 364 had a unique bond, devoted countless hours of leadership by example by both the parents and the Scouts. And they did many things in and for the Borough of Keyport. As I said, the parents led by example, and they had great volunteer leaders as well over the years. I recall when I moved here and I assisted over at the shelter, one of the first groups that I encountered was the Boy Scouts preparing the hot meals for the people staying in the shelter. Everything that I pretty much have attended, obviously the pandemic slowed that down a little bit as to what they were attending, but prior to the pandemic, I don't know that there was a borough event that they were not present at. That troop was phenomenal and showing and leading by example. Whether it was the 9/11 ceremony, they were there. Whether it was the Memorial Day services, very, very, very few residents come out for, they were always there. They annually did the flag retirement ceremony down at the waterfront, which was in collaboration with our American Legion. There were just countless things that they were always there and always asking how they could help. They did trail cleanups. A lot of people don't even realize that every morning after each night of the fair, they went and cleaned the fairgrounds. So there were just a lot of different initiatives that the group had. The pandemic, unfortunately, stopped kind of recruitment efforts on many organizations such as the Scouts. And as I said, 3 members made Eagle Scout last night, which is an amazing accomplishment, especially with the pandemic thrown in there, that they didn't give up. But it's probably also because they learned on an early age from things like Sandy when they were probably only in kindergarten or first grade when their school got turned into a shelter, how to pivot through everything that's thrown at them. So I think it's an amazing accomplishment of, and I think it sets a bar for Keyport that 3 Eagle Scouts finished their accomplishments last night. So I think it was worth taking a moment to recognize all of that on record. I also want to talk about the Memorial Bench dedication ceremony for Chief Timothy Flager was held this past Saturday. For matter of record keeping and documentation, the bench was purchased without borough money, but via monies donated by the members of the governing body and administrator. The Flager family chose the location as to where the bench is placed in Fireman's Lot. I encourage everyone to reflect on the memories that we have, both good and funny, and as I mentioned on Saturday morning, perhaps it could even be a place that you sit and listen to some country music and remember the memories of Chief Timothy Flager. I'm going to hijack a little bit of Trevor's report because these are 2 really exciting updates. We officially have it in writing from Monmouth County that they've approved 2 of the requests for 4-way stop signs along Green Grove. And also the mid-block crosswalk on Broad Street began the construction phase today, and I believe should be completed tomorrow. And the biggest news of all is literally hot off the press within the last 3 hours. But the end of the year government funding bill is expected to pass on Thursday or Friday. We believe it's pretty bipartisan at this point because they've already hashed everything out behind the scenes. So if this bill passes, we received word, as I said, maybe 2 hours ago, from Senator Booker's office, Chief of Staff, that inclusive in that would be the $2,347,000 funding for our water lines for the borough of Keyport. So I know they're not here and they're not present. So give a shout out to the upper administration levels for hopefully passing us. Everyone keep an eye on seeing if that funding bill passes this week. And I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge that that didn't move forward without the efforts of Trevor and Jay, making sure every piece of requirement for that application was submitted in time. So, thank you. Okay, that wraps up my report. Next, I have a motion to open to the public for resolutions and communication cables only.
Motion.
Second.
Sorry.
I just want to see, can we just for tables?
Oh, sorry, right. Sorry.
Sorry,
So, you want to do it?
yeah, sure. I have a few, if we can,
Yeah.
perhaps discuss pulling or tabling, resolution 22-259. It's regarding 357 West Front Street. They're requesting the motor vehicle dealer license. And from the planning board, I don't believe this was discussed or part of the final resolution for the marina. So it would be, I would personally seek the governing body would like to see if we can shoot this back to the planning board or at least to their attorney to decide if that's something that, even though it's zoned for sales, for used boats and trailers and whatnot, it might cause more of a parking issue and circulation issue. So I guess we can discuss that unless, Jay, do you know if there's been any discussion with the planning board about this? Because we, as far as I know, we haven't seen it, but maybe the mayor and I have.
If this was referred to the zoning officer for a review, it was the zoning officer's determination that the type of business being operated was an accessory to the approved marina use. So it was not, based on that, it was not, did not require any formal planning board review. But if you'd like to hold it for further discussion.
There were, and again, the governing body agrees, there were extensive conversations about the businesses that were being operated on that property prior to the application being approved. And I don't recall, and when I spoke to, when I read through the resolution, neither does it say that boat sales, trailer sales are permitted on there as a different type of business use for the property. And being this is a new application for Department of Motor Vehicle, it doesn't seem like it was something they've done previously. So I would like to see it bounce back, at least for further discussion.
Okay. There was a couple other things you said.
There were. Resolution 22-258. Just real quick regarding the insurance, the JIF. I didn't see anything in there outlined about medical, not personal medical, but medical instances. Is that covered under a blanket heading and for money allotted to that? So, sorry, it's not clear. I speak English here. Yeah. Yes. So there's auto, physical damage, general liability, and auto liability, workers' compensation. And is there anything in there that's specifically for injury?
Well, it depends on the nature of the injury. If it's an injury that occurs in relation to an automobile accident, it's covered as part of an automobile liability coverage. Likewise, if it involves a claim for medical reimbursement costs for an accident that occurs on borough property, that's covered under the general liability portion of the coverages. So there is no separate allocation or assessment for medical services that you're referring to, if I've addressed the instances that you have in mind.
Okay. And then I had questions regarding communications 1 to 3.
Do any other governing body members have any questions on items before we open it to the public? Part two, we'll have questions on communications 1, 2, and 3 when we get to them. So I guess before we open it to the public, we should know whether we're tabling or are we pulling 2022-259.
I'd like to make a motion to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Seeing that there's no questions from the dais, can I have a motion to open to the public for agenda items of resolutions and communications only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any members of the public have any comments on the consent agenda, resolutions, or communications? Marilla?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Morella, 34 Broad Street. My question is regarding Resolution 2022-258, the authorization of the renewal of the membership of Monmouth County JIF. Is this part of a term, or is it renewed yearly?
The membership in the JIF is on a 3-year basis. However, the insurance coverages are provided on an annual basis, January 1 through December 31, and there is an opportunity to reject the assessment that is billed to the borough at that time for each annual renewal.
So is this the third year of a 3-year term?
This is,
It is, okay. Just a follow-up
well,
question.
actually, maybe just to clarify, this is authorizing the renewal starting January 1st, which is the first year of a new 3-year term.
Just to follow up to Councilwoman Davidson's question or concern, do we have a risk manager that reviews that policy and gives his or her opinion to the borough before we do something like this?
Yes,
We do. And did they give that recommendation?
they did.
And who is that person?
It's Fairview Insurance, Tom Fitzpatrick.
So they review it, and if there's any concerns, they let the borough know?
Yes, as well as, in this case, because it was a 3-year renewal,
Yes.
they looked at other JIF options as well as private carriers for coverages.
Okay, thank you. And the only other question I have or comment, number 4 on communications was a letter dated November 29th by Salvatore Alfieri requesting rezoning of Block 94, Lots 17 and 18. Now, I know this says just to receive and file, but wouldn't we want that to be referred to like either the planning board or the members of the council that are on redevelopment? Because this is asking for something that's concerning a big project in town that's before the planning board. I mean, just to receive and file, I mean,
Well, the protocol would be that we would receive and file it,
And then-
but upstairs it should have already been referred to the zoning office to follow the proper zoning process. And then if that was denied there, then he would have already been guided, or he or she would have already been guided to the proper procedures date from there. Am I correct, Jay?
Yes, this is a rezoning request that would require an ordinance change by the governing body.
yes,
So that will be reviewed by the incoming council once it reorganizes, and whatever council committee, more than likely redevelopment or one of the other committees, whichever it's assigned.
okay. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Lane?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Good evening, Mayor, members of council.
Good evening.
The resolution 259 relative to the sale of vessels at Browns Point Marina. In addition to looking at this from the planning board point of view, I think the council needs to look at this from a leverage point of view. The same kind of leverage that was applied to Bethany Manor. The applicant won something. If you look at what the applicant has failed to deliver, he was supposed to deliver a standpipe for firefighting.
Mr. Lane, that's been tabled for this evening, so we're not going to discuss that at this point in time. That's exactly why the council members tabled it, because there's
Well,
further
I'm
questions.
trying to give additional input to council members to consider.
You can certainly do that at the second public portion.
This is the time to talk about resolutions. I'm talking about a resolution.
Not one that's going to be heard tonight. That's why it was tabled, and that's why we ask ahead of time, so that people don't have to waste their time on that.
Resolution 261, special counsel relative to cannabis, which is going to cost about as much as $17,500. Is a special funding arrangement going to be set up so that we take the profits from the cannabis to pay for this council rather than be paid for from taxpayers' funding? Unlike the parking where it just disappears, will you please make some arrangements to keep accounting separate for this and to bill the cannabis profits so that the taxpayers are not paying it?
I totally understand what you're saying, Mr. Lane, but I don't know that that's going to be feasible to be upfront about it, because there won't be profits yet obtained from cannabis in this year unless they, I mean, it might be, I don't know what time frame it will be, but the stuff that we have to hear will be before a door is open probably, right? Because it's litigation that's before the borough at this point in time. So there isn't an operating facility. There may be approved facilities, but there's not an operating one. So we can't ask for our law firm to wait to hear a case until we have the doors open on one. So in theory, I hear what you're saying, and I think structurally in the budget, perhaps that should be something that's considered moving forward, but just to be due diligence and upfront, I don't see that that's going to happen in this particular case.
I agree the refunding will be at some point in time, but I'm saying we should have an accounting process so that when we start to make revenue from cannabis, it pays for
that.
this expense.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Mr. Graham?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
A few things on here. Resolution 2022-256 with the, permitting the transfer of excess appropriations and stuff like that. Can you all explain that one?
Sure, at the beginning of the year, of every year at reorganization, a temporary budget is passed by the governing body, and then a regular full municipal budget is passed in the April-May timeframe. And the allocations are made in that budget passing. However, those are projectory, so things happen or don't happen sometimes just due to various reasons.
Right.
So the state of New Jersey allows for budget line transfers to take place in the municipal budget after November. So this is reallocating the funds that either weren't spent or have to be moved to cover expenses that were incurred. Am I correct, Jay?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And fair enough. And resolution 2022-257, can you explain that authorization balance?
Sure, I'll defer to Jay.
Yes, these are, this resolution cancels 4 appropriations that were previously authorized within the water sewer capital budget. Essentially, these are amounts that are no longer needed for the project that was authorized. And this is really kind of a financial bookkeeping matter to clear these authorizations off the books as of the end of the year. So this is, in some cases, there will be funds that will be freed up. In these cases, these are all what are referred to as unfunded authorizations. So it's simply canceling the previous authorization so that they're no longer on our books.
All right, fair enough. And on resolution 2022-261, I more or less second what Mr. Wayne just said and everything like that. Hopefully the taxpayers of the Keyport won't end up on the hook for this in the future and stuff like that. I agree with what he said. Thank you, Merry Christmas to you all, and Happy New Year.
Two, thank you. Any other members of the public? Seeing no hands, can I have a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions for the governing body? Councilmember Davidson?
One more question regarding, what is it, 22-259. Jay, the auto liability, the number of units from last year went from 66 this year to 67. Are those included?
Guess you mean 258.
Excuse me?
You mean 258,
Yes, what did I say?
259?
Yeah, I don't mean that.
Okay.
250. That's what my vote from November, so sorry about that. October. Which vehicles are included in that 67? Is it all the police vehicles, DPW vehicles, first aid, what?
It's all vehicles that are titled in the name of the Borough of Keyport.
Although, are they all vehicles that are actively in use, insured, registered, and on the road daily or close to that?
Yes, I don't have the listing in front of me, but they are all active, and any vehicles that are in reserve that have not been retired from service.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Any other questions? Seeing that there are none, can I please have a motion to approve R 2022-253 through 258 and 260 through 262?
Motion?
Second.
Have a roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Davidson.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
Councilmember Aranio.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have the public hearing and adoption of ordinance number 2022-26, revising occupancy limitations in the Borough Housing Code. Michelle, will read that by title, please.
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 12, Building and Housing, Article 2, Housing Code, Section 3, Amendments to the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Keyport.
Thank you. Is there any commentary before I ask for a motion to open to the public? A motion to open to the public?
Motion?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any members of the public have any questions regarding ordinance number 2022-26? This is the public hearing portion. Yeah.
Yeah, number J. Graham Jr., Boynton St. Peter's Place. In regard to this ordinance, why does it need to be revised? Can you
Jay?
explain?
Yes, this was a recommendation from the borough's fire official and housing inspector. Clarifies the occupancy limits, particularly as it's related to the changing the requirements under a previously established code to bring them more in line with current standards.
Okay. And plus it's also to prevent illegal occupation of houses too, right, in the borough?
Well, that has always been the case, but this specifically is revising the occupancy limits and clarifying the language as far as the portions of residential structures, particularly multifamily dwellings, as it relates to the areas where occupancy is measured and excludes kitchens and those items.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Lane?
Michael Lane, 51 First. This ordinance, do we presently have occupancy limits in our Chapter 12?
Leslie or Jay? Do you want to answer that?
This is actually, within Chapter 12, the borough has adopted by reference a national code, specifically the Boca Property Maintenance Code 1996. So there are occupancy limits within that code, but we're changing it to bring them more in line, as I said, with current standards and clarifying certain aspects of the language. This specifically eliminates children under the age of 2 as being considered as part of the number of occupants that are permitted. And likewise, as I indicated earlier, it clarifies and specifies the areas of dwelling units that are approved for occupancy for sleeping purposes, and specifically prohibits their use of kitchens, bathrooms, dining rooms, etc., and limits those rooms to be those that are designated and approved as bedrooms.
Are our property maintenance people presently enforcing this code?
They're presently enforcing the code that is on the books.
And I'm just curious, because I looked through the code book, and I actually have a code book that goes back to 1988, and I couldn't find anywhere where, you know, if you're going to get a CO, it specifies the steps to get a CO. I couldn't find anywhere where it was delineated what the code was that property maintenance people were going to enforce.
Okay, I'm not sure what sections you were looking at, but I believe Chapter 12 does include the adoption of the Boca Property Maintenance Code as the borough's property maintenance code and its standards for occupancy.
Okay, so our property maintenance people are familiar with that code.
Well, the housing inspectors are, yes.
So, when is this code enforced? Is it during the CO process?
Yes, when you use the term CO, there are a couple of different meanings of that, but as part of the approval for rental purposes, that CO does, that's the standard and that's the time that the inspection is conducted.
So it's done when somebody's going to get a CO for rental?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. The new code delineates requirements for the size of the habitable area. Has that changed much from the old code?
Honestly, I could not tell you what the difference specifically of the old code is versus this standard.
All right, so we don't know the A versus B.
It is my understanding that this is an upgraded code and is more, I would say, strict, but what the prior number was, I couldn't tell you.
So we just have your word that it's more strict, but we don't have an A-B comparison.
That's correct.
One of the things that's mentioned in here is rooming units. And again, I couldn't find a definition of where a rooming unit is. But if we go to our land use requirements, and we spent a lot of time on those, we clearly spell out what a rooming unit is, and it's not an allowed use in the borough of Keyport. And I bring this up because it looks to me like there's a whole set of development standards that are embedded in this code that need to be reflected back in the land use requirements. And I think we have to update the land use requirements in sync with this development, with this property maintenance code. The example is, we have a requirement for habitable area. If somebody goes before the planning board with a plan, we don't have this standard delineated. And so it needs to be synced with the land use requirements. Same thing for the size of the bedroom. And again, we don't have a design standard. And in addition, it's interesting, if you look at the definitions in the land use requirements, there's a definition of what a kitchen is, there's a definition of a number of things. We need to update our land use requirements to clearly define what a bedroom is. And give you an example. My perception, and Trevor, am I wrong, is that the bedroom has to include a closet. That's part of our development standard. But that's not, these two things are not synced together.
Isn't that a state requirement? Definition of a bedroom?
I think it's a closet and a window for a bedroom.
For an egress or a closet, right? So that's already like a standard, so I don't know that it has to be included in an ordinance. I understand what you're saying, they could always add terminology for definitions to be handy, but definition of a bedroom, I think, is already classified, not necessarily through borough code. But I see your point. It could be added in the vocabulary.
Yeah. When we worked on the site plan and subdivision ordinance, we got coaching from the consultant, very large, very strong coaching, that we should have definitions in one document. And that document should be the land use requirement. And so when the site plan and subdivision ordinance was put together, there were no definitions defined in it. They all referred to the land use requirements.
Right, so what I'm saying though is that, to your point, that would be a remedy to the land use requirements, not to this ordinance. So I think that the definition of bedroom should be added to that, but that wouldn't hold this ordinance up.
That's my point, is that you have to update both of them.
You wouldn't need to update the ordinance because it's not required in the ordinance when it's already a defined description from the state, first of all. If you want to have a consistent place of definitions, even though there's already a state designation of what that means, then you can add it, but it's not a requirement to the land use description.
Well, you're defining a set of development standards, size of bedrooms, size of habitable area, separate. And it's not in alignment with what's in our land use requirements. And so what I'm suggesting is that in addition to adopting this ordinance, you need to take a homework job to update the land use requirements to be in sync.
I'm agreeing with you on that definition to be added to the land use agreement, but I don't think it would hold up the ordinance, is all I'm saying.
I'm not arguing about the
Okay.
ordinance. I'm giving input.
Correct, and we're hearing it.
The council needs to put on their agenda, and working with Trevor, and I spent more than a year working on the land use requirements in the master plan.
We're
With
aware.
a team of residents.
I know.
I will, Trevor, if you accept, I will send you input.
You can send that to the administrator and they can disseminate it as they choose.
And, all right. So that's my key input, is that the definitions and the design standards and the land use requirements need to be updated to encompass the new material that's in this ordinance.
Thank you for those points. Mr. Kelson?
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peter's Place. So this ordinance, is it only adopting the language from the new property code, or is it adopting the entire updated property code?
It's actually amending the previously adopted 1996 property maintenance code.
So it's amending that language to the 96 property code.
Well, I'm not sure if I understand the way you're explaining it. What this is doing, the borough has previously adopted the 1996 local property maintenance code for as the occupancy standard, as well as for a maintenance code for existing structures. As part of that adoption process, the borough has the ability to change sections or portions of that. And what has been recommended is that the portions that deal with the minimum usable habitable space, the section dealing with the calculation of area for sleeping purposes, and the prohibited occupancy language be changed.
So that section of the 96 FOCA is going to be amended and changed with what's in the ordinance?
Correct.
Okay. Now what about the adopted 2015 property code?
That's the international code, the you're
Yeah, it's actually the replacement for the BOCA. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of, the BOCA should really be repealed because the replacement covers all that stuff. And it's listed as an amendment. So I think there's going to be a lot of conflicts with the changes and the differences between 115 and 96.
For whatever reason, the borough had previously adopted both codes.
Yeah.
The history of that, I don't know, but this was the recommendation as far as changing the property maintenance code, not the international code.
The BOCA and the international code that are adopted cover the same things. The 2015 is obviously the new updated version. And I'd imagine there are sections in the new code that contradict the old code. I don't know how it affects this amendment, but I think generally to have two separate regulations for the same thing, I don't think it's a good idea. So, that's all I wanted to bring it to your attention. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Seeing no hands, can I have a motion to close to the public? All in favor? As heard from the public, do you guys have any commentary or questions before we decide what we're doing on it?
I do have a question. I mean, I didn't know about these two different codes. Trevor, are you familiar? No?
No, I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. I mean, I do recommend that if we adopt this, that we at least investigate what the differences are between the two, because I would imagine there's potential things that just don't line up between the two.
If I'm correct in some of the conversations I had with the code enforcement officers, that the amendment here is going to be more the accepted standard across the board. So there is international and there is BOCA. Again, I don't know exactly which one. I thought the BOCA superseded the international, and that was the more recent one. So from the way I understood it is that this, what we did here, the amendment, was simply just to put into effect the more accepted, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for my words at the moment. Square footage and recommendations. That makes no sense. I understand that.
But do we know, do these recommendations apply to both codes?
No, these are specific to, as referenced in the ordinance itself, these are amendments to the 1996 BOCA National Property Maintenance Code.
Do we know if there's conflicting information in the other one?
I'm not an expert in the specifics of one code versus the other.
And in general, what would supersede what?
I clearly understand that I don't have skin in this game, nor do I have a vote, but it sounds like there's a lot of questions on the table, and my suggestion, if it would be taken, would be that this get tabled to next year with the current governing body of 2023 members on it, as well as all the code officials coming to the council meeting to explain why they would want to keep both on the books. So if there is no, if that's what you guys agree with, then I'm gonna, just for matter of record, because I have to, ask if there's a motion to adopt the ordinance, and if there is none, then it dies, but I have to, at least on record, ask if there's a motion to adopt the ordinance. Going once, going twice. Okay, so this ordinance does not move forward. Okay, communications by consent. There's items number 1, 2, and 3 for approval, and then 4 and 5 for receive and file. Just for documentation and clarification, there was an email provided from the clerk to the fire chief, just explaining that there are several questions that people were probably going to raise tonight. So I'll raise the questions that I found on the form, and then if council member Pepperoni has any updates from the fire chief, that's great. If not, I'll let you guys decide whether you want to move forward with them. Just give me 1 second. Communication number 1 is a letter to advise the last regularly scheduled meeting of Hook and Ladder Company of October 3rd, 2019, that the membership accept the resignation of Mark McTiernan as an active member. I don't believe that that date is correct of October 3rd, 2019, and I don't believe the name is correct. So I strongly encourage that this gets referred back to that fire company. Well, this is, it says Keyport Fire Department letterhead on top, but it's not the letterhead we're used to seeing. And as I said, I don't know that the name of the deceased is correct, and I don't know why we would be accepting a letter of something regarding membership on October 3rd of 2019. So Councilman Pepperoni, do you have an answer on that one?
I don't have any update on that.
Okay. So I think that's important. Along with that same one is the New Jersey Firemen's Association application for membership. And the date on top of that is really interesting. It's 100 years old. It's May 8th, 1922. So again, I think this really needs to be looked into. The next one, the communications 2 is actually seemed in date order incorrect. So maybe it's 1 and 3. So then communications number 3, so on the top of the application, on top, it says July 25th, 2022. I just encourage that communication come forward. Obviously, I know we had a very rough time in the fire department between July and currently with the situation with Chief Lager. But as I said, one of the documents says 2019, another, it's just, they're not consistent, and each form is different from each fire company. So I just strongly encourage that maybe there be some kind of process put in place for timelines on when these forms should be received. Because either A, someone could possibly not be interested by the time the application is getting to us, or they may think they're on it and they're not on the fire department because it hasn't been accepted, which goes back to the JIF questions that have been asked tonight, which means that if it's not accepted into the membership by the borough, then they're not registered into the JIF insurance. So they may think that that it was accepted and be responding to things, and they're not on our insurance. So I just think the whole process should be looked at now that all of these have come to light, and then also making sure that nothing's being held and not turned in, so that names don't get transferred to, so that they can't be put forward for elections. So I'm not sure what the pleasure of the governing body on those 3 items are, but I think they all needed to be pointed out. Councilmember Davidson, you said your questions?
I did. I had the same questions for communications 1 and 3 regarding the fire department. So that's just definitely number 1. I think needs to be corrected and brought back. Number 3, I have the same concerns with the dates. There's one date crossed out. There's another date written over it or above it. So I don't know if that means we need to have that one corrected and clarified as well. But it would be nice for the consistency side of it, for the reasons you just said. And then my other question was on communication number 4. On communication number 4 regarding the yacht club, block 94, lot 17 and 18 being rezoned. So being we would accept this to receive and file, I was just curious, I guess it's going to come to the planning board or to zoning about what their goals are for the yacht club and the property. So are they planning on building on it? What is the point of making it general marine commercial? I understand the yacht club is there, but if they're not going to be putting a building in solely for parking, is there a purpose to having it rezoned at all? So I just didn't know if anybody had any insight as to what their plans were for that property. But if it goes to zoning and I guess to planning board, then those questions will be decided, be answered at that point.
Any other members of the governing body have questions on communication?
I just think communication 1 has to get pulled and 3 to be fixed and clarified, or at least until the official information gets updated. I don't think we should be accepting that with the dates being questioned.
So is there a motion to table communications 1 and 3?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There's no other further questions on communications. Can I have a motion to?
I just have one question.
Oh, I apologize.
I'm sorry. I do have a question about process. I guess the question with the communication 4, what is the next step for that letter? I just want to understand what's the next step there, if we accept this. The second thing is, I think I have to abstain from that one. Yeah.
Chad, this was a question earlier from a member of the public, so and we explained, can you just re-explain that this was for just a formality so that they wanted the mayor and council to know what their intent was, but this isn't the process or the appropriate approving body, so my guess is that the application was submitted to zoning, and my understanding is that they've been working with the zoning officer and whether it has to go to planning board, am I correct?
Well, actually, it is my understanding that this is a request to rezone the property, and only the mayor and council through an amendment to the zoning map can do that. This comes at a time when obviously it's too late in the year for an ordinance to be introduced. It would be referred to the planning board as it is a development, an amendment to our development regulations, and then would come back to the borough council. So at this point, this will be revisited after the first of the year, but it is this governing body that has the initial say as to whether they want to introduce an ordinance to rezone. Whether the council wishes to refer to the planning board first is the governing body's at their discretion. But the process would require, if it does move forward, after introduction, there is a formal referral to the planning board as part of the statutory process to amend the ordinance.
So then both questions that came forward about that, it shouldn't be under receive and file, then it should be under some kind of action that needs to be taken.
Well, it has been received, and whether it's filed, again, whether the council wishes to, what direction the council wishes to take. But my presumption is that this will be put on hold until after the first of the year and reviewed again once the council reorganizes and whatever committee will review it first.
Then my suggestion would be that this get tabled until not the reorg meetings. I don't believe you can list items such as this as reorg, but for the first council meeting in January for the new governing body. If that's what you're saying, because there's no way we're going to be able to rezone this now at this point in the year.
Correct.
So I say table number 4. Is there a motion to table number 4?
Motion to table communication number 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or no?
Abstain. Did you get that?
So can I have a motion to approve items number 2 and 5?
Motion?
Second.
Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember McDermott? Yes. Councilmember Davidson?
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara?
Yes.
Councilmember Aronio?
Yes.
Councilmember Pepperoni?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm not going to ask for a motion for the minutes from May 7th. Those were not able to be completed by the time we managed to circulate them. Next, we have the reports for Municipal Clerk's Report for October and November 2022. Tax Sewer Collector's Report for October and November 2022. Board of Health Treasurer's Report for October and November 2022. Building Department Monthly Report for October and November 2022. Municipal Court Monthly Report for October and November 2022. And Keyport Fire Department Report for September and October 2022. Is there a motion to receive and file?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any no or abstain? First, we'll go to unfinished business before new business, because I think we can pass that by unless Councilmember Arenio has any updates on that. Councilmember Pacheco had asked for this to be listed, but she's not here this evening.
Yeah, so what had happened is the Harbor Commission were working on bylaws for probably a year, a little over a year. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure that everything went before the borough, so went to Jay. Jay made some changes that he wanted to see on here, which he struck through, and the Harbor Commission would like to put forward the bylaws that were established by them as well as with Jay reviewing so the council is supported to move forward.
Okay, so Mr. Delaney provided his feedback well over a year ago, so they now finally have a chance to review his.
They went through it, finally took the most sense of
So has that been circulated to the governing body?
it. No, not yet. This is the first time.
Okay, so that wasn't in the packet, so no one had a chance to review that. So do you want to make sure that moves forward in January?
Yes.
Okay. Any new business from the governing body? Next we have Deus updates. Chief Torres, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. Total calls for service, just let the record reflect that this is from December 1st through December 20th. Total calls for service were 571, 34 case files, 4 mutual aid calls, 1 stolen motor vehicle, 16 suspicious activity, 12 disorderly, 3 criminal trespass, 67 responses for first aid calls, 217 motor vehicle stops, 51 summons, and 29 motor vehicle accidents. Recently, we had a robbery. It closed. All subjects were identified and charged. Thank you for the promotion of Sergeant DeGroat and Patrolman DiLorenzio, who is currently on his FTO and doing well. We've also closed a $23,000 fraud where the subjects were identified, the arrests were pending, and they are able to stop some of the transfer of money to get it back for the resident. I want to personally thank Councilwoman McNamara for working with us. Part of your service was as a member of, am I yelling? I don't even know.
No, but I think you got McDermott.
I'm sorry. Wow, that was pretty good. I'm sorry. I know what you meant. I knew what you meant. I want to thank you for working. Part of your service was as the liaison for the police committee, and you served as a voice for the police department to come back with our concerns and our talks to the council. We got to know each other. The police department got to know who you were and what you stood for. We just really want to thank you for your service. You were outstanding, and it was always a pleasure and honor to work with you. So thank you for that. Mayor, it's also been an honor working with you during the time you served as mayor. Keyport Police Department wants to thank you for all your hard work, dedication, and service to our borough. We appreciate how much your heart and soul went into every decision you made during the hard times like the pandemic, to the fun things that we were involved in as well. You are the first female mayor, and that alone is something to be proud of. Thank you again for your service. We at Keyport Police Department are proud of you and all you have done. We did get you a plaque to present to you. I don't know if you want me to give it to her now. Is that okay? Just a Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. And no more updates.
Actually, I'll take a second before we go along the rest of the day as updates. Obviously policy and process are some of the things that we really worked hard on the last 4 years, and really even changing the structure and format of borough council meetings, which a lot of times seem to become known as either borough public circus meetings, but really we've done a lot to change it to let the council have a say first. When I used to sit in the back row of the council meetings, the council had the last say. Their reports were always given last at the end of the meeting when no one was left in the room. We've changed that to the structure so that the council, and most of the time because no one was in the room, the council reports and from the council members, you literally would just say nothing to report. So I think it's commemorative of the council have always been prepared at their council meetings the last several years with their committee reports, which shows that the borough is moving forward, because that's what the council members are elected to do, is to represent the legislative branch of the borough of Keyport, make sure that the employees and the residents, the police department have the tools necessary to do their daily operations of the borough, and that's what you guys were doing. So it also shows that the governing body is showing up and being representative to the boards and commissions that they're either board members of or liaisons to, and that's the whole purpose of having borough codes that identify that there's board members or liaisons, if it's a council committee, assigned to every board and committee that's in the borough. So that's the voice back to the rest of the governing body and the administrator to identify the goals of what is being worked on throughout the borough. It's not for the other volunteers of the boards and committees to call our staff or call the administrator to do the work for them. That's the utmost role of what the elected officials are supposed to be doing on those boards and committees. Unfortunately, for several years or decades, those seats weren't being held at the tables and people weren't attending. I will say that this governing body monumentally has been representative on all the boards and committees, and I commend all of you for doing that throughout the entire year. So, and that's how you see things and processes being able to take root and form. And one of the other processes was that some departments or professional members of the borough, it would be all these scramblings or chit chat, and we wouldn't have the answers. So you're a wealth of knowledge, Trevor, and I appreciate that you have committed this entire year to coming to every single council meeting. That speaks volumes of your service going above and beyond, because I know that's not part of the RFP, and you did it anyway. So thank you. Chief Torres, having your reports on a DAIS report this entire year has also been, I think, very meaningful to the borough of Keyport to know what the men and women in blue are doing to serve and protect our borough. We know it up here all the time, but being that voice on record, hearing the stats, you just said over 200 stops, motor vehicle stops in 20 days. The voice that you bring to represent the borough police department is commemorative as well. Jay, thank you for always being willing to take the dovetail when we throw it to you to answer the questions. So I know DAIS reports were a new thing this year, so I just want to take a moment. Before that, mine was only attorney's reports or attorney's updates. So we got to put you in mixed company now, Leslie. So, and this year, for attorney reports and DAIS reports, cannabis was, a major time component of our working professionals. It wasn't just attorney and the committee, it was zoning, it was engineering, there were so many things that came down the pike without any direction from the state, that left many, many hours of every single week being dedicated by our staff. One of the things people are familiar with, when you put in a planning board application, you're required to submit copies for every planning board member and the professionals that represent the planning board. So if you're putting a new level on your house and you need planning board approval, you have to submit 12 copies of those plans. You have to submit 12 copies of the drawings. If it's 12, I think it might be more than that actually. But anyway, because it was new, when the cannabis applications came out, no one thought about that it was going to be a 150-page application process. So there was no requirement built into the ordinance that the applicants had to make all the copies of that. So when you think about the application process alone and the time that took from our borough staff, without having the ability to hire additional staff to fulfill it, I think is also commendable about what this administration was able to accomplish this year. So Michelle, you're part of that because a lot of that fell on your record keeping as well. So thank you. And then also, it should be noted that the last 3 years, while there are excellent changes as far as the voter process and the accessibility for voting, that also falls all on the clerk. That's one of her primary roles besides being the administrative role for the governing body and records. And we can all attest to how many voting changes have taken place between having a box outside here, where the different polling locations that have been changed in Keyport, as well as early voting and all the new rules and regulations, and to stay on top of that and keep it moving seamlessly didn't go unnoticed, Michelle. So now I'll go to Jay for your Thais updates.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Michelle, do you have anything today?
Mayor Kennedy and Councilwoman McDermott and Councilwoman Pacheco, who's not here this evening, I just wanted to say that it's been a pleasure working with you both, and Councilwoman Pacheco, and I wish you all the best of luck. I hope you stay around.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks for everything. Definitely has not been an easy 3 years. Again, not just everything with voting, but next month, January 31st, was my first request for Purell to be ordered, and everyone looked at me like I had 6 heads, because the pandemic didn't really start in the United States until March. So we were ahead of the curve. But from that point forward, it was a lot of things thrown at the clerk. We had a temporary administrator at the time. So even going to Zoom, things we never heard before, PPP, all that type of stuff, flatten the curve, and how we were going to navigate all of that, and even just have Zoom accounts. And, when you post a meeting agenda, that meant it had to have a new login, because if many of you remember, when we tried to use a universal login, that didn't go so well when the streakers showed up across the screen. Which meant every public notice had to be republicly noticed because it had to have a new login every time. I know, I'm glad we're here laughing about it now, but those were some seriously uncharted waters of any clerk schooling would have ever even been possibly able to provide. So, and you always did it confidently and professionally, no matter which switches. Same thing with 2 reorganization meetings in a row, the 2021 and the 2022 reorg meeting. We're scheduled to be in person. We had everything set up physically, and both meetings 48 hours prior to reorg, people that were getting sworn in came down with COVID and they had to be switched virtually. So that was more public notices out to the public and changing the entire format of the entire reorg process, which is monumental. So thank you for being so flexible and pivoting on the dime continuously, Michelle. Leslie, any updates?
Not really an update, but as this is my last council meeting as your borough attorney, I just wanted to thank the mayor, council members, and Jay and Shannon and Michelle, of course, It's been a pleasure working with the borough as borough attorney. I will still be around helping out with the cannabis litigation, but it's been an honor, and I just want to thank everyone.
Anyone? Councilman Davis?
Switching gears, just real fast, I've had the privilege of serving on the Hackensack Meridian Bayshore Medical Center Foundation for 3 years now. In one of our previous meetings, they are having a serious need for volunteers within the hospital. Since COVID, obviously, many people can't volunteer for so many reasons, and they've lost a good percentage of people to help in the hospital, outside the hospital, administration, candy stripers, whatever the need. So it was brought up at the meeting to bring back to municipalities to say, if there's anybody willing to volunteer, there is strict protocol for vaccines, flu vaccine, COVID vaccines, so on and so forth. But if there's anybody interested, please reach out to Bayshore Medical Center. They would welcome anybody, and it is our local hospital, and they have done great things in the past few years. So they welcome everybody in the community to go check it out, and if there's anybody that's willing to volunteer their time and service, they would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
I would ask if they have a flyer, and maybe Council President McNamara can give that to Madeline, the folks in the senior center. Thanks. Trevor?
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, Mr. Delaney and I met with County Engineer Joe O'Toole last week. We went over several items that are on their list, just a couple of the highlights. We talked about the R22 culvert, which is on Clark Street between the Parkway entrance and Broadway. The county initiated funding for the design of that culvert this year, so they're looking to get a three-party agreement in place probably at some time next year with us, Hazlet, and the county to seek some funding through the DOT for that culvert. They're looking at raising that culvert because I know it's an area that floods quite frequently, so they want to raise the elevation of the roadway there to stop the flooding that currently occurs. So that's something next year they're going to be reaching back out to us for probably a letter of endorsement and possibly an application to the DOT. We spoke about the stop ahead sign at First Street. That's across the street from the firehouse. So I know you brought that up a couple weeks ago. They're going to take a look at that and try to get that relocated so it doesn't get hit. They have another TAP project for the Henry Hudson Trail crossings. It's each of the locations that the Henry Hudson Trail crosses a municipal roadway. They're going to be surveying and doing some design work at those locations. I recently received some mapping from their engineer, which is Greenman Peterson, who's doing the design. They asked for some utility markouts on their base maps, so we're going to be providing that to them, and that's the first step in getting those designs started. There is one last 35-mile-an-hour sign actually in the borough. It's on Stone Road between First and the Hazlet border. They're going to be looking at that and seeing why that was not changed. Looks like they had a missing part of their ordinance, change that, so they're going to take a look at that one. They are also going to begin surveying the Henry Hudson Trail in continuation of the drainage review along the Henry Hudson Trail. So we spoke to them about the ditches along the trail as well as the outfall that goes underneath the trail at the terminus of 3rd Street. I sent them some additional mapping that they requested this week, so hopefully just after the first of the year, you may see some county survey crew out along the trail doing some survey work. As far as the borough's TAP project, we actually received just today the federal design authorization from the New Jersey DOT. So we'll be requesting a resolution for that for the next council meeting to approve that, and that will start the final design for the TAP project. As Councilwoman McDermott indicated, we have the municipal public access plan that the DEP is still not approved for whatever reason, so that did come up at the Harbor Commission meeting. Reached out to the DEP. We're still awaiting a response from them, so I'll continue to follow up with them to get an update on the review of the MPAP. The New Jersey natural gas issue on Church Street. I did speak to a manager at New Jersey Natural Gas after the last meeting. They did plug all the holes that they had in the road. and I did issue a report on that just yesterday about the information that I have, with a recommendation for final restoration in the spring, but something we'll have to discuss about how that final restoration is going to be done by New Jersey Natural Gas. I also spoke to the county engineer about the punch list for Broad Street that we submitted to them several weeks ago, which they have not started yet. He was going to look into that and provide an update. And the last day, the mayor indicated, we did start the mid-block crosswalks today at Broad Street. They also addressed the curb ramps at Jackson and Broad Street. So we noticed that was started today. They should be back tomorrow to complete that work. I think that's all I have for now.
Just for clarification of record, the first thing you reported on, I think you said the stop sign on First Street by Consolidated. I think it's a pedestrian crossing or a slow zone.
Stop ahead.
Oh, stop ahead, okay, just wanted to, okay, so, got it, there is what it is. And, the two additional, four-way stops that the county approved, do you know when they'll be installing them?
Actually, I spoke to Bob Cushman about that last week, because we heard this letter was coming, so he's going to put the stop signs up and then come back in the spring and do the stop bars. So that's actually our responsibility to do the striping and the stop signs.
So I'm going to defer to Jay and Chief Torres to communicate that. Can the four of you communicate that together? I mean, should we putting stop sign up, the stop bars on out? And also, I think a post on social media and the website should maybe, just to publicly promote before stop signs just get randomly put up. And they're not randomly, this has been a process and all of that, but the constituents don't know that. So I would like some kind of press to be done about that prior to them being installed, please. Okay, thank you. And any updates on the electronic blinking signs that are going to be installed by Bethany Manor by the crosswalk?
They're still probably 2 months out for the post, so I think sometime probably in March they should be delivered.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone? All right, can I have a motion to open to the public for a maximum of 5 minutes per person?
Motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelsey?
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peter's Place. I did take a look at the 2015 International Property Code. It does have the occupancy limits listed. They seem to update them every year, put new ones out. I don't know if we need to update every year, but it's probably a good idea just to get rid of what's there now and adopt what the latest codes are. That's my recommendation. Curb ramps. Why were there no curb ramps installed on Main Street south of Raritan with the other curb ramps? Does anybody know?
That was something that was included in the punch list to the county requesting this.
Oh, was that on there?
Yes.
Okay.
Curb ramps or crosswalk?
Both.
Okay, I saw the crosswalk, so I'll take a look again.
Including at the end of Atlantic?
I get confused with all the streets right there, but
The end of my street where it loads out to South
so
Main.
there's 2 across where the church parking lot is, Broad and Main. There are crosswalks across both of those. So yes.
And then Raritan by and Center Street, I think is the other one.
Raritan's has new ones.
That's Center.
Center Street, there's
Center Street.
nothing.
Yeah, there's not.
Yeah. So I thought the borough did the curb ramps, or we just paid for it.
It depends on which part. Not all of them did we do.
Oh, okay. All right. And then parking. Is there any work being done to advance any of the recommendations, especially the ordinance cleanup and sign cleanup? Maybe in the new year?
I think that would be great. Governing body has not moved anything forward.
The no parking signs on Division are completely unenforceable right now. So, at least fix that. So, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Hi.
Hi, Beth Henning, 102 Main Street. Before I start, I'd like to wish the best of luck to Mayor Kennedy, to Councilman McDermott, and best of luck to new council people and Mayor-elect. I'm here on a mundane personal issue. I'd spoken to officials about, we had a replacement of a lip to our driveway and a piece of, when there was work done by the borough, and they cracked. So I called the borough, and everybody responded well. I'm just concerned now with the change of administration that I don't have anything in writing about an agreement. I took pictures, I sent them, there was agreement that at some point it would get fixed. And I've never had an issue with the borough if you had a verbal agreement like that. But things fall through the cracks, so I just wanted to, I made make a couple of calls and emails to the borough, but I didn't get any feedback, so I'm here just to say.
We want to on record know that I understand what you're saying. I was unaware of this at all, so thank you for bringing it up on record. I just want to clarify, has it been resolved or it hasn't been resolved?
Well, it was resolved
First,
yeah,
but it may happen.
We don't know when the next.
If it's going to happen again, so you just want to make sure that that's right.
No, the agreement was that they were going to come and fix it with the next work order, but they don't know when that's going to be.
Oh, so it has not been fixed?
Oh, no. So that's my concern, and I've never had, I've never had an issue. The borough has always been responsive, and I'm not really concerned it's not going to get done, except for,
It's word of mouth. No, I didn't know anything about it, so it's good that this is on record.
I mean, if it changes administration, so I don't know if everybody's going to be here.
And I don't think anyone in the current administration even knew this was a thing, so I think it's good that it's on
Well,
record.
I mean,
and
I've
documented.
always never had a problem dealing with the officials and didn't feel a need to reach out
I
to
understand.
anybody else because everybody's always been, I've never had an issue with the borough, ever.
Trevor, you had your hand up. Did you want to comment on it?
Yeah, we did speak, and I did indicate it would be done in the spring, so I can send a letter on that if necessary.
Okay, that would be great. And also, there was another, and I won't take this off your 5-minute limit, but there was also residents on Broad Street with the cracked apron from the paving project. Has that been communicated with the county?
That was on the punch list. They have not started it yet, but it definitely is on the punch list. I had one resident. I did not have a second resident.
I only knew of one, but I thought it was mentioned at a meeting that there was more than one. Sorry, I won't take that off your minute.
I don't even know if I'm on this, and I just want to say this is not a complaint, everybody was great.
Okay. But it's good it's documented, thank you.
Yeah, so thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank
Thank you.
Mr. Graham?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Councilwoman Davidson, speaking of volunteering and stuff like that, I don't know if you all know it or not, but there's a place in Middletown, New Jersey called We Care Adult Care. Now, it's on Highway 35 in Middletown. I go there twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, as a client and a volunteer. So in other words, they help me out and I help them out. And we work together quite well. The staff at We Care is terrific. They're outstanding. With what they have to work with every day, they're outstanding, they're dedicated and everything like that. However, they are looking for volunteers too. And I would just like to say, if you know of anyone who wants to volunteer to work at We Care on Highway 35 in Middletown there, just call them. I don't have their number offhand, but you can look up their number. They can look up their number and give them a call about it and everything like that. And they're really outstanding. As a matter of fact, on my Facebook page tonight, I plugged their staff, saying that they're doing a terrific job, and they really care very much. And I go there, like I said, on Tuesdays and Fridays every week. I've just started going there, and believe me, they're terrific. Okay, and on another level, Madam Mayor, Councilwoman McDermott, and she's not here tonight, but Councilwoman Pacheco. We don't always politically, we're miles apart and everything like that when we don't agree and stuff like that politically. But on a personal level, I would like to thank you all for your service to the borough of Keyport. You care about a beautiful borough, I care about it, we all do. And again, thank you so much, and Attorney London, thank you for your service, and just wish you all best of luck in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lane?
Michael Lane, I'd just like to address a little bit more the issues with resolution 259 with Clay Perlman request. I think you have the opportunity to use this as real leverage to get things moving relative to Brown Front Marine. They were supposed to have a standpipe for firefighting on the pier, and we had a fire this month, and there was no standpipe, and it's been a requirement for 6 or 7 months. In addition, they were supposed to consolidate the lots into lots 15.01 and 16.01. None of that's been done. None of the ownership consolidation has been done. And so I urge you to use this as a leverage point to force action on all the efforts that the planning board put in to delineate the requirements for this site. Further, in any of the planning board sessions I attended, there was no discussion about buying and selling boats, where they would be located, how much space they would take, etc. So none of that's been resolved. So you have an opportunity to put some pressure behind this issue. In the past, there's been a tax assessor's report at the end of the year that outlined how much the commercial properties assessments increased or decreased, the residential assessments increased or decreased, and I've been listening, but I haven't heard any report from the tax assessor. Has that been dropped?
It has just been received, it is posted on the website, it'll be distributed to the governing body as part of the next meeting agenda.
So it just wasn't listed in the agenda. Okay. The other thing is, Trevor, you talked about the TAP. Is the TAP going to cover the First Street crosswalks and improvements?
Yes, TAP project does include First Street crosswalks and curb ramps.
Can you just clarify which TAP?
Sure, this is a 2016 TAP that was...
Borough TAP.
Borough TAP, correct.
All right, so this is going to take place this spring?
Yeah, so this is the letter dated December 13th we just received today, authorizing the final design for the federal agreement to move forward with the final design.
Super. Now, I'm delighted to hear the four-way stops on Green Grove. What about the four-way stops on First?
Those were not approved. Those were not approved.
Are we going to press for them?
We could put another request to the county, but they already spent money on their engineer studies, and they came back that they were not substantiated. That's what their letter states.
Was the extensive report that was done by the Environmental Commission shared with the county about the fact that the difference in the four-way stops was less than 1 minute in the transition between Union Beach and Highway 35, 36 over the bridge?
There. If you'd like me to address that. As part of our meeting with the county, we requested they provide us with the data they used to make their determination. And I can tell you this is not an area that I have any expertise, but the commentary from the county engineer was that the primary standard that's used for four-way stops is a balance of traffic volume. And so we did ask that they provide us with that data, and we'll make that available when we receive it.
What does it mean, balance of traffic volume?
That, as I understood, as explained to me, that the traffic going in one direction is about the same as the traffic going in the other direction. Whatever standard is used as far as how close that balance is, but that's the determining factor that they referenced, they being the county, in making the determination that it did not meet the standard for a four-way stop.
The whole objective of the four-way stop is traffic calming.
Oh, I understand completely what the intent was, and we reiterated that point. However, again, when we receive the data, we'll be better able to articulate the reasoning behind the denial.
Will you provide that to the Environmental Commission?
We'll make it available to whoever asks for it.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I just have one clarification, sorry, based on Mr. Kelsey's comment. I did double check the letter I sent to the county, and the curb ramps were not on our initial punch list, but it's something that we did speak to Joe Attore about last week. So I'll follow up with a letter to Mr. Attore just to make sure that it's in writing.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Mr. Morello?
John Morello, 34 Broad Street. Just to follow up, a couple of meetings ago, I brought up about Monroe Street and Pimper Place intersection, lack of speed limit signs and wrong way, and there's still traffic going the wrong way, and still traffic going faster than 25 miles an hour, and there's a lot of children on that street, as it was brought to the attention of the council earlier in the year by a resident that lives there. I just hope we would put that forward, moving forward next year as a priority, maybe with the parking committee or maybe with the borough to discuss that further, because I think it really needs to be looked at. Secondly, at the last meeting I brought up about the concerns that I had on Butler, Maple, and Broad regarding a local business parking all their commercial vehicles on Butler. It was suggested that maybe we look at a 3-hour parking. Since that meeting, 3 days later, a tractor trailer unloaded on Butler Street, which a tractor trailer shouldn't even be on that street because it exceeds the weight limit. They unloaded 6 pallets of landscape pavers, put them in the middle of the street, and then with no cops around, no traffic safety, then took their forklift and moved them into their business. And I did write the borough a letter, an email, and I attached photos of what I seen. At the same day, there were 7 commercial vehicles owned by that company on that street of Butler. There was 2 on Maple, and tonight, I had an opportunity today at 3:10, while the busiest part of crossing guards, crossing our children down Broad Street. The vehicle was parked across the Broad Street, again in front of the business, blocking the sidewalk. So the children got to make a determination, is there enough room to walk by, or do they walk in the street? And you know what, if that was my kid, I'd have a serious problem. I did address it to Jay. Jay thought that I should call and register a complaint with the police department, which I will not do, because as far as I'm concerned, you guys set policy, they're to enforce it. So the bottom line is, I brought it up at the last council meeting, so it's on record. I'm bringing it up again, that tonight, while on my way to the meeting, 7 vehicles are parked there now on Butler. The one that was parked on the sidewalk is gone, but the other 2 vehicles are still on Maple. So this is the second time that I've addressed the council with a serious concern that I have. Family Dollar had a tractor trailer coming in early in the morning. Somebody complained. Now they're only allowed to come in at a certain time and unload. This tractor trailer did whatever they wanted to do, put those pallets on a borough street, and just like no biggie. And that street's, you guys decided that that street's going to be paved. There's kids recreational, there's a ball field, there's a skate park, and very little parking. So I would suggest that we really take a good look at that. And I thank you.
Any other members of the public? Mr. Morrow?
I don't usually talk.
It's the first. That's your
Joe
first.
Earl at 121st Street. I'd like to thank Councilwoman McDermott, Mayor Kennedy, and good luck to Mrs. London for all the things. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other members of the public? Seeing no hands, can I vote to close to the public?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, for the final time, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.